The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Thanks for joining us here on FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow. We're speaking to as many candidates as possible between now and the November 7th city election, so you can make informed choices when you go to the polls. Please be joined today by incumbent City Councilor Andrew Raposo. Councilor, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Keith. How are you?
So, what were your thoughts from the preliminary? You finished well, top 9, 7th. Of course, that doesn't mean that will necessarily happen, but just your thoughts about the preliminary.
Yeah, so nothing's guaranteed, of course, but I'm happy to be within the top 9. I'm thankful for the support I got from the citizens of Fall River, and to those who may have not voted for me, I'm hoping to gain their support between now and November. So there's plenty of work to be done. It's no time to be complacent. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity for the general election coming up.
Does that give you any support in terms of that? It looks like at this point that voters are receptive to what you've done over the first 2 years.
Surely, yeah. I mean, I think that's the good thing about the preliminary election is to get that gauge, where 2 years ago I didn't have it. It was kind of one and done in the general. So I'm happy to see that I placed in the top 9. Clearly, I have some confidence among the voters. They like some of the things I'm doing, which is good. But again, I'm always open to the idea that there could be something more I could be doing or additional feedback from voters. So I'm always open to hearing that. That's why from now until the general election, I'm going to be out there. I'll be doing a lot of sign holding over the next few Saturdays to be available to people. And anybody who wants to have a conversation, I'm here to talk.
What about the turnout? Very low. I mean,
Yeah, the turnout was low. One hopes that people will be more engaged, and I think that's one thing I think all of us as elected officials need to kind of put out there to the citizens. And I think it's important to start with the youth, especially over at Durfee and the high schools locally, that voting is so important. And if you want some change, you have to participate in the process. So I think over time, we as elected officials have that duty as well to encourage people to vote and get out to vote, no matter who you support. But yeah, the turnout was low, and I'm hoping for a bigger turnout come November.
You mentioned about the sign holding that you'll be doing over the next few weeks between now and Election Day. Mm-hmm. You also make a point to go to a lot of events. And that must be equally important to you because, again, your role is to serve the people, and the only way to hear what problems they may have is to, many times, meet them face to face.
Correct. So we don't get to do a lot of talking at a meeting when it comes to constituents. When we go to our Tuesday meetings, we have the business to attend to and what have you. But going to events is very important. So between the neighborhood association meetings that I go to often across the city, may it be an event the city's hosting or a community event. Like this afternoon, for example, I'm heading over to the fire station in the Flint. They're having an open house. Right. So it's important to be present. Obviously, there'll be people there. But it's not about trying to gain votes. It's about being present, supporting the programs that are going on in the city, which then support the people of our city. So yeah, being present and being able to make yourself available to people is very important. And that's why I take as much time as I possibly can to be at these events, especially like it was during the summer and now even going into this election time. It's important to do it all the time, not just during this time.
Do people appreciate it from who you've spoken to?
Yeah, I mean, I often hear from people that it's nice to see you here. We're glad you're here present. I always hear, you're always here for things. Great job, keep it up. And I appreciate that because as they understand, we all have our lives and we all have jobs and what have you, but it's also important to make sure the commitment is there, and I continue to honor that as much as I possibly can. But again, it's rewarding for me because we get to talk to people and you get to see what their issues are and what can we help you with, and where direction can I lead you to get some assistance. That to me is the most valuable part of this job. It's constituent services.
Yeah, I know I've asked you this when we met prior to the preliminary, but is there like one issue that you really want to focus on if reelected to a second term? Yeah,
so most recently, there's been obviously a lot of conversation about the homelessness population and some of those issues around there. I want to try to be proactive more with the council as a whole, the administration, how we can tackle that issue. I think there are a lot of possible solutions, but again, like I've said in the recordings and in the statements, we have to work together. And we have to come together for one goal. And at the end of the day, no matter where these individuals are, they're here in our city. So we have to make sure we take care of them as much as possible. But at the same time, making sure that the taxpayers and those who live here are also taken care of as well. So it's a balance. We all have to work together to come up with a solution. There's been a lot of progress made thus far, but there's still more to be done. And again, collaboration will be key to that.
And in some ways, it's more than one issue that that the city's facing a problem. You've got the encampments that are going on again, primarily during the warmer months. Hopefully, some of those individuals will seek shelter as the weather gets colder.
Correct.
But also the panhandling aspect of it, where I know there is an ordinance that is sent to committee, that you're on the ordinance committee, that will see that. Is there a way to? I mean, you've got they're two separate issues, but it's in some ways it's combined toward one problem in terms of homelessness and those having a tough time affording.
So I avoid to paint the issue with a broad brush, because I think, like you said, there are many aspects of it that collectively come to that one issue. The panhandling thing is, I think, first and foremost, is a safety problem for people. Motorists, people standing in the middle of the road on the medians. There's probably a better way to do that, and I think that's where we're headed with that. And I think, again, that's why it's going to go to the committee. We can have those discussions, but keeping people safe in more ways than one is important, and we have to make sure that we get to that point.
Yeah. We talked, in some ways this is also a public safety issue, but there are broader issues with public safety than just the homeless and those who may be trespassing on properties, because I know there have been some testimony before the council from residents about those who are encampments encroaching upon private property owners. I think we touched upon this as well in terms of general public safety, the need for more officers, the need for more oversight. Looks like it's a problem that's very difficult to solve with, I think I mentioned this as well, where Chief Garvin has said in the past, we had plenty of potential recruits but not enough money. Now it's the opposite. There's money to hire recruits but not enough in the pipeline.
Correct. So to your first point, I give a lot of credit to those individuals coming forward to the city council during citizens input to let us know, because they're the individuals on the ground. They see what's going on and they're bringing their concerns to us, and it's important on us to act on them. On the second point, the public safety piece, it's important that, again, we support the police, the fire, the EMS, all those branches that, again, provide the safety to our city. And Chief Garvin has said it a few times, and he's right. We're in a situation now that the finances are there, the individuals are not. But give him a lot of credit. I think he's moving it forward. He's getting recruits to come in. Same thing on the fire side. Hopefully that situation, the fire contract's gonna be rectified shortly. And again, we need to put the priority on the safety of our citizens. And without that, we're gonna run into more problems. So we need to make sure we support that.
I know we've talked a little bit about city budget, which is obviously the city council approves the budget every year. I believe the city is still sitting on approximately between $25 and $30 million of ARPA funds that still hasn't been spent. How would you like to see those remaining money spent? They have to be allocated by the end of 24 and spent by 26. So in the next term, if you're reelected, you'll have some say in that in some way, shape, or form.
So I think when it comes to the city's ARPA money, continued investment in our infrastructure is probably the biggest thing I'm looking at. Because you don't want to invest that ARPA money, it's one time where you're not going to be able to renew it. So if you can do infrastructure projects that for the long term will benefit our city and our citizens, that's where I'd want to go with that. On the Bristol County ARPA side money, we have some initiatives going on. I know Council Washington did the For Youth Initiative. I worked with Council Dion to do a Bristol County ARPA support of the veterans. So individuals who may be having a hard time paying with heating bills during the winter, especially as the weather begins to turn. So that ARPA application went through. I believe it's already in process at this point, and we should be seeing some results of that shortly. So the second pool of money there, hopefully directly assisting the individuals in the city. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach, but the money is there and we need to invest in the long term. And I said this at last night's meeting, it's all about the long-term planning. I think if the ARPA money is used for long-term projects that will benefit us long-term, we'll be better off. And because if 10 years from now we're looking for that money to do these projects, then we have to bond, we have to seek out the money. We have it right now. We need to take advantage of that opportunity. So this way, 5, 10, 15 years from now, we leave it better than we found it.
Yeah, and I know there may be some temptations to spend it elsewhere, but then you get into the issue of, the mayor has been able to use some ARPA funding for lost revenue, which can go into salaries and the like, but that dries up.
Correct.
I believe this was the last year the city could do that. I guess in the last few moments that we have here, what are you generally telling people when you see them about your reelection?
So I continue to say what I've said for a long time. I am who I am. I'm very genuine. I'll tell you if I agree with you, I'll tell you if I don't agree with you. And we have this discourse, which is great. I think people appreciate that about me. And again, being present for a lot of individuals is very important to them, and I continue to do that. So I hope in a combination of the work that I've done thus far, being present and having these conversations with individuals, that I'll continue to gain some more support and hopefully bring me through the general election coming up.
All right, City Council Andrew Raposo, thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
All the
Keith.
best in the election.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us here on FRC Media, and please make a point to vote on November 7th.